All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is Saturday, April 6th. We have a jam-packed, and I mean jam-packed MLB slate to dive into in today's video. Like we always do, we're going to go through each and every one of these games. I'll give you my lean on the side. I'll give you my lean on the total. We'll talk about any player props that we like within the game as well. But as always, if you do want to fade me and do the opposite of what I say, all of my final plays will be listed in the pinned comment of this video, so make sure to keep an eye on that. In terms of last night, we do go 3 and 4. Stopped the bleeding a little bit with some of those wins being plus money plays, but nonetheless, the Reds first 5, the Nerfy of the Rays Rockies, and the Jared Jones under in strikeouts. All right, fine, terrible calls, right? That Rays Rockies under 13 where we faded altitude because, you know, we're Mother Nature over here. Oh my God, I think it was like, what, 5-2 heading into the top of the 9th, and I was like, we are cruising. The Rays put up like 5 runs in the 9th, so got kind of kicked in the you-know-what's there, but nonetheless, we faded altitude, and altitude is like, yeah, I don't think so. But a 3 and 4 night, not going to kill us because of those plus money wins we had from the Padres first 5 and the Padres and Giants under in the first 5 there. But let's do a little bit better tonight, all right? But let's give a shout out before we jump into the games. We got Mark here with the Daily Dinger calling Tristan Casas. Boston Red Sox fan myself, love to see that. Shout out to Mark here for calling that. If you guys don't know what the Daily Dinger is, it's a way that we give shout outs to people in the comments here on the MLB videos. All you got to do is use hashtag Daily Dinger in the comments and drop a player name that you think is going deep and going to hit a home run today. Then I'll pick someone for tomorrow's video to give a nice little shout out to. But all right, guys, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button as well. Let's jump into game number 1 here. We have the Tigers taking on the A's. Yesterday's game was a lot closer than a lot of people would have thought. Remember, the A's, and I did lean in that direction. I didn't make it a final play, but the A's were plus 200 on the money line. They end up only losing by 1 here. Tigers win 5-4. Today, that money is a little bit better. It makes a little bit more sense to me. You have the minus 160-ish odds here for the Tigers. In fact, the best line you can get, minus 164 over on FanDuel. So it doesn't immediately, like, price tag value tilt me towards the Athletics. But on the mound for Tigers today is going to be Kenta Maeda going up against Paul Blackburn here. One of them had a good start to start the year, and one of them had a poor one. Honestly, if you were to just say the names, you probably would guess wrong which one did or didn't, because Kenta Maeda, who, you know, probably is the better pitcher, right? Actually went out there against the White Sox, pitched 3 1/3, 7 hits allowed, 6 earned runs, let up 3 home runs, 2 strikeouts, and a walk. And it's like, wow. That stinks, right? And then Paul Blackburn on the other side of things, who we faded like plenty of times last year, kind of shoves against Cleveland in his first start. 7 innings pitched, no earned runs, 3 Ks, 3 hits, 1 walk, averaged under 13 pitches per inning. So, yeah, I guess we have to give a little credit and nod to him there. One start, though, I'm not willing to like sound the alarms and say that, you know, Oakland has a strong pitching edge today. But what I do think is Detroit has a strong batting edge today. So both these pitchers coming from the right side. In terms of how Oakland's been batting righties here, they're ranked 24th in the MLB right now, so 6th or 7th worst, right? Batting just over 200. WRC plus is in the bottom percent of the league as well, and they're striking out a lot, nearly a 30% K rate against right-handed pitchers. Whereas Detroit, they're not amazing, but they're kind of middle of the pack in most things. Ranked 11th when it comes to WRC plus, so you like to see that. Low on the K percentage as well, and they're getting on base. On base percentage to start the year against righties, 322. So I do think that there's still a lot of juice to be paid for this Detroit money line play, but that's honestly going to be my lean there. We just got to hope that Kenta Maeda actually pulls himself together and has a decent game, because what he did last game is not going to work. I think it was he had a 16 point something ERA technically after that first game, which you just can't assume that that's going to happen again, right? In terms of a total, I'm not too big on it here, but I think I'll lean towards the under. I know yesterday we saw a 5-4 game, but I could easily see this one being, like a 4-3 or even like a 4-2 spot. I hope Maeda backs, steps up, because if he, again, has a 16-plus ERA in this game through 3 innings, yeah, the over is probably cashing. But I'm going to lean towards the under here, because I don't think Oakland's bats against righties are looking all that great. All right, moving on, we got Minnesota taking on Cleveland. This is a This is definitely an interesting one to me because I see a lot of similarities between game number 1 of the series and game number 2, which Minnesota heavy favorites. Minnesota would seem to have the pitching edge, but you still have Cleveland bats that are very good against right-handed pitchers, which Joe Ryan's on the mound for Minnesota today. He comes from the right side. They're going up against Carlos Carrasco, who didn't look all that great to start the year. Oakland kind of took it to him. 5 innings pitched, 6 hits allowed, 3 earned runs, just 3 strikeouts. So I kind of get a little worried looking at that and looking at this game from that perspective of like, well, look at just the pitchers. But part of me just wants to continue to, I guess, overall trust what we've seen out of these Cleveland bats against righties and kind of continue to take them. Like one thing to note here is that they just don't strike out against righties. So it's almost like I want to look at Joe Ryan, pitcher for Minnesota, his under in strikeouts. You can get that from -118 on FanDuel right now, which is a great deal compared to DraftKings -135 and Caesars -137. So to be honest, that may be lean number 1 in this spot. Joe Ryan, just like Pablo Lopez, throws a lot of fastballs, almost 57% of his pitches coming in from fastballs. And we just saw what Cleveland can do against a fastball pitcher, right? Pablo Lopez, a strikeout master, did not strike many guys out. So I think, honestly, we rarely start with a player prop when breaking down a game, but I think that's my immediate attention and direction to go to. So Joe Ryan under 5.5 Ks. In terms of where we're leaning for the game, I want to lean Cleveland because I said there's a lot of similarities between this game and the game prior to, but I don't think that I can get behind Carlos Carrasco here. So I'm going to lean towards Minnesota, sadly, because I do think that there looks like there could be some spots here. But what I'll say is this is probably going to be a pass for me because though I want to lean Minnesota, or though I want to lean Cleveland, I can't get myself there. I am going to lean Minnesota. I need to see Minnesota's offense do something before I put money on them, especially when they're -158. You know what I mean? So this is very much a lean. I don't think it becomes a final play. In terms of the total, I would lean towards the under. And honestly, Joe Ryan under in strikeouts, the under in the game, and then, the side is probably where my leans go in terms of rank and priority because I wanted to get to Cleveland. I really did, but I do think I'd be forcing it and backing a pitcher that I don't want to back. But Minnesota's offense, man, has just been so bad against righties specifically that I don't know if I can really, really back them monetarily. So we'll probably see the strikeouts or the totals in there before we do see the money line. St. Louis taking on Miami. St. Louis decently favored in this one, but honestly not as heavy as I would have thought. But -148 against the 0-8 Miami Marlins here. The total sitting at 8 in this one. On the mound for St. Louis is going to be Steven Matz going up against Trevor Rogers. Trevor Rogers' first start to the year, not all that great, but what Marlin has had a great start, right? 5 inning pitch, 7 hits, 4 earned runs, 6 strikeouts, 4 walks through almost 20 pitches per inning. Going up against Matz, who had a decent showing in his first start. Give him credit, it was against the Dodgers. 5 1/3, 2 earned runs, 5 hits, 3 strikeouts, 2 walks. So again, nothing like incredible, right? But I think I can get a little bit of credit here for kind of holding his own against Miami there. In terms of how the offenses look here, neither one's looking great against left-handed pitchers, and both these pitchers pitching from the left side. Right now we have Miami batting 174 against lefties to start the year, and then St. Louis batting 189. St. Louis is getting on base against lefties and has a decent walk rate, sixth best on-base percentage against left-handed pitchers this season, and the second best walk. So I guess you can give them a little offensive edge there, but overall, the numbers we're looking at, not the best look. I am going to lean towards St. Louis because, like I've said in the last couple videos, like Miami's got to show me something. 0-8 is unbelievable here. St. Louis already took it to them 8-5, right? So it's like I will say I need to see a little bit of something before backing this Miami team ever. And this was like a 1-1 game, and then I believe the 5th inning, Miami went up like 4-1, and you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? St. Louis has a big second half of the game, and I think they scored like 7 runs from the 5th inning on. So that could definitely happen again because you're dealing with not only a bad Miami team, but this Miami bullpen, not great. To start the year here, 6.91 ERA with a 1.85 whip. Like, that's just terrible. Now, you have the Cardinals on the other side that's not looking all that great, but way better than that. And the thing truly is, like, if I were to look at this game and the Cardinals, were to have a bad bullpen, I might consider money line on the first 5 innings. but I want to get to that Miami bullpen the way that it's been pitching so far. So I'll be leaning St. Louis here on the money line for the full game. From a total perspective, I got to lean towards the over. Both bullpens, I mean, like I said, St. Louis is better than Miami's. Miami stinks, but St. Louis is also isn't all that much to brag about. So maybe we do see some late runs in this game, pushing this over 8. All right, we got Pittsburgh taking on Baltimore in this one. Yesterday, Baltimore ends up winning 5-2. We were on the right side of that one with Baltimore money line. Today on the mound for Pittsburgh is going to be Bailey Faulkner going up against Tyler Wells. Faulkner, in his first start of the year, 4 innings pitched, 6 earned runs, let up 2 home runs through 5 hits, and that was against Miami. So that's not the best look. We did have a decent showing from Tyler Wells. Not a decent showing, a kind of a mash showing from him as well. So we have 2 pitchers on the mound that kind of started the year off not all that great. But Baltimore's offense is better than Pittsburgh's. Not necessarily against lefties in this spot. So Baltimore to start the year, 188 average against lefty throwers, which is nothing to brag about here in this spot. Whereas Pittsburgh's actually 11th best team right now against righties from an average perspective. I think that I'm going to lean towards the dog in this spot and take a peek at Pittsburgh on the money line at plus 116. I don't necessarily, if you're on Baltimore, I wouldn't convince you otherwise. We were literally on Baltimore yesterday, but I do think that this comes down to the fact that as good as Baltimore's offense is, I want to see some more left-handed pitcher success before we back them in that spot. So yeah, I'm trusting the offense over the pitching here, hoping that Faulkner can kind of pull things together because, again, neither one of these guys had a great start to the season, but Faulkner's was definitely worse in this spot. Now, from a total perspective, 8.5 runs. I'm going to lean towards the under. The weather looks like it's blowing directly out to center field, so that could lead to a couple runs that we don't see coming. But what I'll say here is, again, if Baltimore is supposed to be the better offense in this spot, yet they don't look like the better offense when you match them up against the split against lefties, I'm going to take the under. Even yesterday we saw, a 5-2 game. I think that this stays right around that 7-run mark. I'm just hoping Pittsburgh's on top here because we're leaning towards Pittsburgh. Washington hosts Philly. This game ended 4-0 Philly yesterday. On the mound here for Washington is going to be Jake Irvin going up against Ranger Suarez for Philadelphia. Ranger Suarez looked good, and I'm going to give him credit for looking decent. 7 strikeouts through 5, 16 pitches per inning on 3 hits against Atlanta, and that's why I'm saying he looked good, because it was against Atlanta. You look at that sort of box score from his first start, you wouldn't necessarily say he looks all that good. Just like we look at Washington, his pitcher Jake Irvin went up against Cincinnati, who, yeah, decent offense, but these numbers don't look all that great. 5-inning pitch, 7 hits, 3 earned runs, 4 strikeouts, 2 walks allowed here. His whip was a 1.8 here, so that's not all that great. And Washington very much struggling against left-handed pitchers to start the year. Ranger Suarez coming from the left side here, so I'm going to lean towards Philly in this spot. I don't know if we like the idea of spending, minus 170 on the money line odds, so maybe that's something that we end up just leaving as a lean. But yeah, I can't really make an argument for Washington in this spot, even looking at a big plus money play. Like, they just don't have the numbers that I'd like to see. From a total perspective, I think Philly's going to score a decent amount of runs again. To some degree, it's not like they're off to a racing start against right-handed pitchers. We kind of talked about it in yesterday's video, how Philly's not necessarily looking like the team that you'd think they would look like. So I don't want to give too much flowers, but I do think that they score a decent amount of runs here off of Irvin. Again, his numbers from start number 1, not that great. 5.4 ERA on a 1.8 whip. So I don't necessarily think that this is a good spot for him. But is Philly going to kind of come out of the offensive slump? Looks like they tried to in that game number 1 there. So, yeah, I'll lean towards the over because I think that they kind of move the needle offensively. But I don't know if Washington comes to play. I hope they do if we end up rolling with the over. But, yeah, that's kind of where my head's at right now. Cubs taking on the Dodgers. This game was pretty shocking yesterday. 9-7 wins, 9-7 win from Chicago here. On the mound for Chicago today is going to be Jordan Wicks, who didn't have the best start to the year so far, going up against Yamamoto, who has a couple appearances here. Neither of one of them are something that, we want to brag about. Actually looked decent against St. Louis with 5 Ks with 5 innings, no earned runs. Doesn't have a win to show for it because St. Louis ends up winning that game. But this matchup is kind of interesting because if you look at their splits here, so the Dodgers against lefties, yeah, they're top 10 in about every stat. That's great. But Chicago against the righties to start the year, they're like top 10 in top 5 in most stats. Average, WRC plus, K percentage, base on ball percentage, on base percentage. Like, this is a Chicago team that looks like they're gonna be able to get on base frequently, which is going to make it tough for the Dodgers in this spot. But I do think the Dodgers have a little bit of offensive fire coming out of yesterday. Like they should be able to get to Wicks. I don't necessarily see this as a terrible matchup. Now neither pitcher has any experience against anyone on the roster batting against him, so we don't have any historicals there. But like I said, Chicago's looking really good against right-handed pitchers. The Dodgers looking good. It's just not really good. So what am I saying here? Some really good offenses to be played today, I think. Now, the weather is cold in Chicago. Slight breeze blowing into home plate. That kind of hurts it, but I'm still going to lean towards the over 8 runs here. If anything, if yesterday's game is any indication, I do think that we have a couple offenses on our hand that do want to go out there and get on base. Now, from a player prop perspective, we kind of kicked a few things around here. I do think my over play is going to be, my number one spot in this game, if I'm being completely honest. But when it comes to Yamamoto's strikeout line, it's at 5.5 right now. I could consider the under. He's obviously hit this in his 2 appearances so far, but this is a Chicago team that, like I said, number one team when it comes to striking out in terms of the least fewest strikeouts against right-handed pitchers. So that could be a consideration. But that being said, we just don't have as much data on this dude as we'd like, right? So it's like, is he just better? Is he just better than the Cubs batting? So I'm going to lean towards his under 5.5 strikeouts, but I almost want more data on him before we pull the trigger on fading Yamamoto here. Now, I didn't really give a money line lean because I don't have one. The Cubs seem like they could be the move, but Jordan Wicks backing him scares me a little bit here. Again, he didn't have the best start, so I will lean Cubs just because that price tag is too expensive on the Dodgers side of things at -190. Maybe this is a Cubs +1.5 spot, for near even odds. I don't hate that either, but I'm going to have to dig even more to really want to get convinced of this line because the Dodgers are still the Dodgers, regardless if the Cubs are good at batting righties. The Dodgers are good at batting lefties. It's not like they're terrible against it, so the gap shouldn't be all that crazy. Cincinnati taking on the Mets. Yesterday's game, low-scoring affair here, and the Mets end up winning that one 3-2. We had Cincinnati first 5 money line, which we may be running back today, to be completely honest, because I don't necessarily think that Luis Severino has the biggest edge over Nick Martinez on the mound for Cincinnati in this spot. Has Severino looked better so far in the one start that these two pitchers have had? You could make an argument yes or no. Like, Severino got tagged around by Milwaukee, you know what I mean? But you flip over to the Nick Martinez side of things, and it's like, well, Washington kind of tagged him around too, so which team is more explainable, right? I guess I'm more willing to excuse Severino going up against a better offense, but the pitching so far doesn't look all that great on either side here. But what I will say is the offense versus right-handed pitchers doesn't look all that great either. In fact, Severino's strikeout line could be in consideration for me here, just due to the fact that this is a Reds team that, versus right-handed pitchers have a 30+% K rate right now, which, that's not very good if you are not aware. The problem with this play is that his strikeout line is at 6.5. So the books have already adjusted to the fact that they know Cincinnati sits here and is going to have a tough time against him. Luis Severino, lifetime in terms of career against players that are on this Cincinnati roster currently, 26.1% K rate. 214 average, base on ball percentage is low as well. But then you flip over to Nick Martinez, because that all sounds great, right? Nick Martinez against current New York Mets here. WOBA just 311, not all that tremendous, but good for him, right? An 11.11 walk rate, which is all right, mediocre. 11.11 K percentage, okay, mediocre, but a 206 batting average against. That is what I like to see against a Mets team who already struggles to hit the right-handed pitcher. Just the third, they are the third worst team, batting just 169 here. So I look at that and I combine that with the fact that Martinez has already had some success against this Mets squad. makes me want to lean towards the Cincinnati Reds in this spot. Now, the problem, just like I said yesterday, I think the Reds are a first 5 team until I can confirm with my own eyes, and the data points to it, that their bullpen is kind of good to go. Now, yesterday, I wouldn't necessarily sit here and be like, oh, the bullpen was terrible, blah, 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 right? But where did those Mets runs come in? In the 7th and 8th inning, we had the Reds first 5 money line. The Mets score a run in the 5th to tie it up, but technically speaking, we were on the right track, right? So I'm gonna lean in that direction again. And then from a total perspective, like I said, I've just kind of gassed up the pitchers' numbers versus these two teams, right? So I'm going to lean towards the under in this spot, 9.5. Like, that's a pretty high line for what I could see happening. And also another thing I could look at is the under in the first 5 if I don't trust Cincinnati's bullpen. So keep an eye on the pinned comment there. In terms of player props, like I said, I want to get to Severino's strikeouts, but 6.5 is just crazy odds. It's plus 144, so it makes a lot of sense, but we can even move it down to over 5.5, but you're paying a little bit of juice there, so probably end up sticking away from it, to be completely honest. All right, Yankees taking on Toronto here. This is an interesting one because, Toronto facing a right-handed pitcher again. They haven't been hitting righties well, anything like that, but they didn't look all that terrible in their win yesterday against the Yankees, so I sit here and I'm kind of, not to say perplexed, but almost want to lean Toronto for plus money again, but can they do it 2 games in a row? Let's hope so. Kevin Gausman on the mound for Toronto. He's a better pitcher, in my opinion, than Clark Schmidt, who's on the mound for the Yankees. And the Yankees, it's not like they crush righties. They're just kind of, I would say, mediocre as of right now. Kevin Gausman has a decent track record against these current Yankees, 238 average, under 10% base on ball rate, 28.6 actually K percentage rate in 192 plate appearances. That's pretty good. Now, Clark Schmidt also doesn't have the worst numbers here, 208 average against the current Blue Jays roster, under 10% base on ball rate. The WOBA is up compared to Gausman at 345 here, with a K percentage of 10% less than Gausman, but you think of Gausman obviously as a way bigger strikeout specialist than Clark Schmidt anyways. So that's not really shocking to me or anything like that. My one concern here is, are the Toronto Blue Jays going to continue to have some sort of success, against righties? Now, even in their game last time, like, it wasn't like the highest of scoring games that got to the bullpen, and there's a problem, right? So if I bet Toronto, maybe I pretty much put, Gausman up against Schmidt and go first 5 for plus money there. That could be the move. When it comes to a total in this spot, I went back and forth on this one, so if you do have a strong lean either way, I wouldn't take what I say and make it change your mindset here. But I do think that this game, well, I would say again, I think this game most likely sits right around 8 runs. So if I think, a floor is 7, I'm probably slightly leaning towards the over, but for a first 5, I may consider the under, because I think the way that Toronto wins the first 5 would be Gausman kind of shoves. All right, Texas taking on Houston. John Gray on the mound for Texas, who did not have a great start to the year, going up against JP France here, who pitched decently against New York to start the year here. Texas wins big yesterday, 10-2. Bradford goes beyond 7 innings, so shout out to him. Good spot. I wish that we kind of pulled the trigger on them there, but nonetheless, we do have a pick 'em today. Both teams minus 108 on the money line right now. The total is up there at 10, which I do think it's a high total. I get why, though. Against right-handed pitchers this year, both pitchers are righties. Houston, 3rd best average, 2nd best WRC plus, 5th lowest K rate, 7th highest on base percentage. You look at Texas against right-handed pitchers, 5th best average, 3rd best WRC plus, 4th lowest K rate, and the 3rd best on base percentage. So you have 2 teams that face this hand very well. And then you can even look at the history of these 2 pitchers, JP France on the Houston side of things and John Gray on the Texas side of things. Like, neither one of them look like extraordinarily superior against the current rosters here. JP France, so actually I should start with this. John Gray definitely off to a worse start of the year. So pitching, I would say pitching edge does go to Houston here, but where they lose that edge is JP France, 44 plate appearances against this current Texas Rangers roster, 333 average, 423 WOBA, base on ball percentage almost 12%, K percentage only down at 13%. And then you have John Gray, who doesn't look terrible against this Houston roster. 255 average, 20% K rate. You know, like they kind of, if you look at what they've started the year off, yes, I'd give the edge to France. Then you look at, John Gray versus the guys on this Houston team, and then JP France versus the guys on this Texas team, and I think Gray gets the edge back. When it comes to offense, I am going to give the slight lean to Houston just due to the fact that, they are a better team from an average and WRC plus perspective. And I think both these teams are high-powered offenses. So we saw a 10-2 game yesterday. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a dominant, I don't want to say dominant, but a good game from Houston on the other side of things. When they do win, they only have 2 wins this year, 10-0 and 8-0. So I do think that Houston, if you like them to win like I do, there could be a sprinkle on the run line here for plus. What do we have for plus money? It was like plus 145 on DraftKings for -1.5. And I'm only going off of the fact that their 2 wins have been 10-0 and 8-0. When they do win, they obviously kind of pull away. So that could be a consideration. But yeah, I think that this is just a good enough series where Texas wins game 1, Houston wins game 2. Again, the pitching edge kind of comes back down to earth, even though I did think originally that France had the edge there. From a bullpen perspective, I think Texas has the better bullpen. So again, don't be surprised if we throw a first 5 money line down. That's kind of the way. And if you don't know what I mean by that, through the first 5 innings, that's where the game stops, right? Which usually is you're betting more starter versus starter. From a total perspective, it's super high. I don't think I bet it myself, but I'm going to lean towards the over just because of what I said about these offenses. And then a player prop here that I don't mind. Now, I wish we were getting better odds. -120 seems like a lot to ask for, but Adolis Garcia over 1.5 total bases. He's done it in plenty of games to start the year, off to a 71% hit rate, 5 of 7. And he has a good average against JP French. 6 plate appearances, 333 average, 3 total bases, 500 slugging percentage, on base percentage 333 as well. Like, could be a good spot for Adolis Garcia to, have an extra base hit today or something like that. Next up, we have Milwaukee taking on Seattle here. Bryce Miller on the mound for Seattle, going up against DL Hall for Milwaukee. Milwaukee, I'm definitely giving the offensive edge here. Seattle's start the year, batting lefties, 5th worst average. Their WRC plus just sitting at 60, which isn't all that great. Milwaukee, though, 6th best average and 6th best WRC plus against righties. Bryce Miller coming from the right side here in this one. Milwaukee wins game number 1 of the series 6-5. Freddie Peralta pitched there against Logan Gilbert. I think I'm just going to trust the better offense in this spot here. The bullpen, though, kind of worries me, so I hate to sound like a broken record, but maybe it's another first 5 play again. Even if it sounds like a broken record, we're here to try and win some coin, right? So if I think that that's the best edge and we keep doing it in multiple games, and it is what it is. But yeah, I just don't know if I can trust the Seattle offense against lefties to start the year. DL Hall didn't have the best start to his year, so I don't want to make it seem like I'm backing a pitcher here. I'm very much backing the batting of Milwaukee in this spot. When it comes to the total, sitting at 8 runs as of right now. Again, if I think this is going to be a one-sided sort of game from a offensive production perspective, I don't want to take an over, so I'll slightly lean towards the under, assuming Seattle continues to struggle here. But again, it's DL Hall. Like, he isn't the ace that could suppress a Seattle offense that's just waiting to probably go off at some point. But nonetheless, trusting the offense of Milwaukee here overall as my main lean, then money line. Kansas City taking on Chicago White Sox. This game, the next 2 games, to be completely honest, don't have much interest in me just due to the fact they have value. So I wouldn't lay Kansas City on the money line, but if what we've seen so far from this season is any indicator, I don't think that Chicago is worth putting any money on, even for some really good odds here in this spot. They've played some close games, but again, just not worth it to me. From a total perspective, I'm going to lean towards the over. I think Kansas City has a decent shot today to have a decent offensive night, which shouldn't be saying too much here. Going up against Chris Flexen, who another guy that kind of faded all last year, right, and didn't love, and then he starts this year terribly. Now, he pitched against Atlanta. I get it, but he's the type of pitcher I definitely need to see some success out of before ever backing, you know what I mean? And he was a guy that we made fun of last year. So, again, the odds make this kind of unbettable to me. And we're in a similar boat here. I know Arizona's better than the White Sox, and they should be able to compete. But with Brandon Pfaadt on the mound, That's a guy that I legit made fun of like last season all the time. Going up against Max Fried, who I do think is a good pitcher, so the value just isn't there. I don't think that I want to start taking run lines with these teams because we saw it even yesterday. Atlanta wins that game 6-5, right? Like the run line wouldn't have cashed, the money line did cash. So as weird as it is, I'm comparing this to Kansas City and Chicago, and it's like, yeah, I think Atlanta wins this game, but I don't see the value in taking them. Now, the total's sitting at 9 runs here. I'm going to lean towards the over just because I think Atlanta could have some success here offensively. Next up, we got Colorado taking on Tampa Bay. I think I'll lean towards Tampa Bay. We have Tyler Alexander on the mound, who I don't even think started his last game, going up against Ryan Feltner here, who definitely didn't look great against Arizona to start the season. You do have this. I mean, you have one more game after this. It's tomorrow, but I do think that this series is I don't know. I think it should be a Tampa Bay series, yet they lose yesterday 10-7, which, like I said, I was a little bummed about given the fact that we had the under. It looks like we got creamed by it, right? It's 10-7, but that was a 5-2 game heading into the ninth. So we tried to fade the altitude, and the altitude won. Today, I don't think that there's any room to fade the altitude just because of the pitchers. Again, Tyler Alexander on the mound for Tampa Bay, and then Ryan Feltner on the mound for Colorado. There's no reason for me to sit there and be like, yeah, these guys are going to suppress them like Mother Nature, and these guys are probably going to let up a bunch of runs. So I'll take Tampa Bay in this spot. I will say that first game was a little wonky. Like, I thought this was going to be a Tampa Bay series all the way through, yet Tampa Bay is now sitting at 3-5 in the season, lost 2 straight games. Have they had the easiest schedule? No. But did I think they could beat Colorado? Yes, so a little interesting there, I guess I would say. From a total perspective, like I said, I'll lean towards the over. This is not my most favorite game on the slate today. Tons of other value. This game seems a little up in the air. No pun intended with the altitude. All right, San Francisco taking on San Diego. Yesterday, we won San Diego first half money line, first 5, as well as the under in the first 5 there. Today, we have Keaton Winn on the mound for San Francisco going up against Michael King here, who didn't look all that tremendous to start the season, in my opinion here. 4 innings pitched, 2 earned runs, 6 Ks, but 7 walks is where I don't think that San Francisco, the first time they saw him, really did their best job bringing guys home. 7 walks is absolutely absurd. Keaton Winn on the mound here, last pitched against the Dodgers. He didn't look all that tremendous either. This game's going to come down to, at least for me, the batting, because I don't like either pitcher here, but you have San Francisco against righties this season, really struggling. 168 average against righties on the season. And, the Padres not batting tremendously, but over 250. They're the 12th best team when it comes to batting against righties on their side of things. So yeah, I think I'm going to lean towards San Diego in this spot again. From the bullpen perspective, kind of where we wanted to avoid any misses yesterday. Maybe this is the first 5 play again, but honestly, San Francisco's bullpen and their available projected bullpen today, 7 ERA with a 1.6 WHIP. I know that the San Diego bullpen's tough too, but we might want to just go full game with this one because it allows us to potentially get some runs late if that San Francisco bullpen's looking really, really bad. From a total perspective, overall, I think I'd lean towards the over in this spot. I've also even considered the Yurfee in this game, so yes, there'll be a run in the first inning. I know the whole world was on the under yesterday, but with Michael King on the mound, that cashed for him last time out, and then Winn, I believe, his Yurfee cashed as well against the Dodgers. So we have 2 pitchers on the mound that have cashed it. When it comes to the teams overall, San Diego's hit the Yurfee in 60% of their games, San Francisco 50%. But head to head, both teams have cashed it in, I want to say, I don't have the exact number, but it's 66% in head to head dating back to April of last year. So could kind of see pulling the trigger on a Yurfee here. We'll see. Keep an eye on the pin comment. That's plus 106 right now over on FanDuel. All right, Red Sox taking on the Angels. Angels are at home here. Reed Dietmer's on the mound for them, going up against Garrett Whitlock. Yesterday's game, Red Sox win 8-6. This Red Sox team 6-2 to start the year. They're underdogs again today, and I like them on the money line. Like both these pitchers, should be able to do a decent job here. Their whips look good to start the year. Their FIPS look good. Strikeouts per 9, strikeouts per inning as well look pretty good here. So nothing to complain about on either side of the pitching here, to be completely honest. Garrett Whitlock's 5 innings pitched against Seattle, 8 strikeouts, 1 earned run, 3 hits in his start. And then we have, like I said, another good spot. Reed Dietmers went up against Baltimore, another strong offense, 5 innings pitched, 2 hits, 7 Ks. So I think the pitchers do their job today, but it just gets down to offense. The Red Sox should be, in theory and statistically, better at hitting left-handed pitchers than the Angels are at hitting right-handed pitchers, and that's the way the split's working out today. So give me the Red Sox on the money line for plus money. In the terms of a total, this one I just gave the pitchers credit, so I like a first 5 under here. Do I necessarily want to go in and trust the bullpens and whatnot? Not necessarily, but this Red Sox bullpen has kind of been nails to start the game. So maybe this is like just a total under altogether. But again, the Angels bullpen hasn't looked all that great. But in terms of player props, nothing really jumping off the page. In fact, you can tell we didn't talk about them much. Not many player props that I'm absolutely loving in today's slate. But guys, it's gonna wrap for today's show. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, drop those daily dingers in the comments, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. All right, peace out.